1 year had passed since the Sweetie incident. Things had changed not just on Renari worlds, but across the entire Galactic Assembly. What started as a small mistake by a nervous human envoy had opened a new chapter in interspecies relations. Ethan Ruiz was now known not only as the man who said the forbidden word, but as the human who made an alien princess laugh and kept laughing. Princess Virelia had changed too, no longer wore the cold mask of formality all the time. It still showed discipline and grace, but there was a warmth in her voice now. Her eyes, once filled with distance, now often sparkled with quiet humor. The Runari Council, once stiff and proud, had begun to slowly accept new ideas. Emotional training programs were introduced. Humor, though still strange to many, was now studied and sometimes even enjoyed. Public emotion theaters were created, where people could laugh, cry, or express without shame. And all of it began with one accidental word. Now, a grand event was taking place. The first intergalactic humor and culture exchange, hosted by the Renari and attended by hundreds of species including humans. The main hall was filled with music, holographic decorations, and laughter. Colorful banners hung across the tall ceilings. Beings from dozens of planets mingled, some dancing, some trying to tell each other jokes, often with hilarious misunderstandings. Ethan stood near the center of it all, dressed in a slightly loose ceremonial suit. He didn't love formal clothes, but he had added a small Earth-style pin on his chest, a smiley face with a heart as usual. He was surrounded by attention. A group of curious alien students asked him, "What exactly is sarcasm?" Another said, "Why do humans say I'm fine when they're not fine?" Ethan smiled. "Great questions. We're still trying to figure those out ourselves." Just then, the crowd parted. Princess Virelia entered, dressed in a royal robe, bluer than any sky-end, lined with silver threads. But more interesting than her robe was her expression. She was smiling. The moment she saw Ethan, she walked straight to him. "You look nervous," she said. "Not at all," he replied, faking confidence. She raised an eyebrow. "Are you lying?" "A little," he said. "Earth tradition." She laughed. The sound still surprised the older Runari nobles nearby. Virelia turned to the crowd. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all kinds, let me share a story." The crowd grew quiet. 1 year ago, I met this human. He called me something forbidden. He used the word. She paused dramatically. "Sweetie." There was a wave of laughter, some gasps, some awkward claps. Virelia continued, "At that moment, I had a choice. I could be angry. I could have punished him. I could have sent him home. But instead," she turned to Ethan with a soft smile. I laughed. The crowd listened carefully. That laughter changed me, perhaps changed us all. So if a single word can begin a friendship, imagine what a whole language of emotions can build. Applause filled the air. Ethan, a bit red in the face, stepped up to the mic. "Thanks, Princess. That's the most romantic version of you embarrassed me in public I've ever heard." The audience roared with laughter again. Then Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small square box. The crowd held its breath. Virelia looked confused. "What is that?" Ethan opened the box and took out a small golden pin in the shape of a banana. She blinked, then laughed out loud. "Is this about the time you accidentally called Lord Sarvin a banana instead of a baron?" she asked. Ethan grinned. "Of course. I had it made to remember the moment when you said I was foolish and still decided to keep me around." He gently pinned it on her robe. The crowd loved it. Soon laughter spread again, this time not as fear, not as insult, but as celebration. As the night continued, humans performed comedy routines for Runari guests. Runari scholars read dramatic poems filled with emotion for the first time. Other species joined in, singing, dancing, sharing their own versions of jokes and stories. At the back of the hall, Chancellor Malcor, once the fiercest critic of Ethan, stood silently. An aide asked him, "Are you still against this emotional chaos?" The Chancellor didn't reply at first. Then he said, "Chaos it may be, but it has brought more unity than 100 years of order. Meanwhile, Ethan and Varelia stood at a quiet corner, watching the galaxy laugh together. Ethan spoke softly. "You know, I never meant to say sweetie. I was nervous." "I know," Varelia said, "but I'm glad you did." They looked at each other for a moment. "May I call you something now?" she asked, mischief in her voice. "Sure." She smirked and said, "Crumpet." Ethan burst out laughing. "Only if I can call you Cupcake. Deal." In that moment they shared not just a joke but a truth, that sometimes the best things in the universe don't come from perfect plans or perfect words. Sometimes they come from mistakes, kindness, and a bit of laughter. Dr. Elias Mercer sat quietly in his small office on Earth. The room was filled with books and screens showing news from all over the galaxy. He was not just any man. He was a diplomat and scientist known for his work in understanding alien minds. Many species had tried to communicate with humans. Few understood humans as well as Elias did. One day, a strange message came through. It was from the Valari Queen herself. The Valari were a strong alien race with special powers. They could read minds and feel emotions without words. This was something humans had never seen before. The message said only, "You are summoned to Nalaxar. Queen wishes to meet you." Elias was shocked. Usually ambassadors spoke to others through many layers of government. But this message was direct. The Queen had never sent a message to a human before. He knew this was serious. He packed his bag and prepared for the long trip to Nalaxar, a planet far from Earth. The journey would take many days, but Elias felt a strange excitement mixed with fear. What could the Valari Queen want with him? When Elias's ship landed on Nalaxar, the air was thick with scents he had never smelled before. The sky was a deep purple, and tall trees with glowing leaves surrounded the landing area. He was greeted by silent guards with bright eyes. They did not speak, but Elias could feel their minds watching him closely. A tall figure approached, Queen Sarakthuan. She was larger than most Valari, silver skin that shimmered in the light. Her eyes held wisdom and power. She did not smile, but there was no anger either. "Dr. Mercer," she said, in a voice that seemed to echo inside his head. "You have come because the fate of our people may depend on you." Elias nodded, trying to hide his nervousness. "I am honored, Your Majesty, but I do not understand. Why me?" The Queen's eyes seemed to look through him. "You will be tested, not as a scientist or warrior, but as a guardian." Before Elias could ask more, a small figure appeared beside the Queen, a child, no taller than a young human girl. Her skin was pale blue, and her large eyes glowed softly. This was Sara, the Queen's child, and heir to the Valari throne. "You will care for her," the Queen said. "She is unstable. Her powers are growing, but she cannot control them. If she loses control, it could destroy us all." Elias felt a chill. This was more than a test, it was a challenge to his very soul. "I will do my best." The Queen nodded and then turned away. "You have 14 days. Prove you can protect her." Elias was left alone with Sara inside a transparent dome, surrounded by alien forests. The dome was a safe place, but the child looked at him with curious eyes. At first, Sara did not speak. She watched Elias like a wild animal, unsure if he was friend or foe, but Elias did not rush. He sat quietly and let her observe him. Slowly, he spoke softly about Earth, about sunrises, about the rain, and about simple things. Day by day, Sara's eyes softened. She reached out and touched Elias's hand. It was cold but gentle. Suddenly, a wave of emotions crashed through Elias's mind: fear, confusion, anger. Sara's powers were strong but uncontrolled. Elias felt as if the child's emotions were storms in his head, closed his eyes and focused on calm memories from his past. He remembered his daughter, lost many years ago. Her laughter was like a light in the darkness. Holding on to that memory, he reached out to Sara with his heart, not just his mind. Slowly, the storm inside him calmed. Sara's eyes glowed brighter, but now with peace. Over the next days, Elias learned that Sara's powers could destroy or protect. She could read his thoughts, but also feel his feelings. He taught her simple words, but also taught her how to breathe slowly when the storms came. One evening, as the two sat watching the purple sky, Sarah spoke her first words to Elias. "Friend?" Elias smiled. "Yes, friend." In that moment, the great test had truly begun, not just of power, but of trust and heart. The dome on Nalaxar was quiet now, but inside, it was alive with soft sounds, the gentle breathing of Sarah and the careful footsteps of Elias. The alien child had surprised him. Not only had she spoken her first word, but she had also started to trust him. This was no small thing. Elias knew that Sarah was not just any child. She was the future of the Volari people. Her powers were strong but wild. Like a river that had no banks to guide it, she lost control, the damage could be terrible. If she learned to control her powers, she could be the greatest leader their people had ever known. For Elias, this was more than a challenge. It was a chance to change the future, not just for the Volari, but for all species connected by the stars. Learning to understand, each day began with Elias watching Sarah closely. The child's eyes changed, colored with her mood's bright silver when she was happy, deep blue when she was calm, and fiery red when her powers flared. Elias started small. He showed her how to breathe deeply. "Slow breath, Sarah," he would say gently, "in and out." At first, Sarah did not understand. Her powers surged, causing flickers of light and strange sounds in the dome. The walls hummed as if alive. But Elias was patient. He told her stories from Earth, stories of people who had fear but found courage. Stories of love and hope. These tales helped Sarah focus. She began to imitate his breathing and sometimes smiled when he finished a story. Slowly, the storms in her mind grew quieter. Elias felt a new hope. A strange connection one evening, Elias sat beside Sarah, watching the stars through the clear dome. Suddenly, he felt a strange sensation of voice in his mind, soft and young. "Elias," the voice said. It was Sarah's. Startled, Elias realized that the child was reaching out to him telepathically. Her powers were not just about destruction, they were about connection. He reached back with his mind, a skill he had learned over years of work with alien species. The connection was fragile, but real. For the first time, a human and a Volari child shared a true mental link. Through this link, Elias saw the world as Sarah did, bright colors and strange feelings swirling together. He also shared calm and safety with her, and she returned it like a warm light. This connection gave Elias new tools. He could now sense when Sarah's powers began to rise and help her calm down before a storm. Unexpected danger, but not everyone on Nalaxar was happy with the Queen's decision. Some Volari believed that humans were weak and dangerous. They thought no human should be allowed near the royal family. One night, Elias heard a strange noise outside the dome. The power in the dome flickered, and the temperature began to drop. Someone was trying to sabotage the environment. Elias quickly wrapped a warm blanket around Sarah and held her close. The child's powers flared in panic, sending pulses of light that shook the dome's walls. Elias spoke softly. "Breathe, Sarah, I am here." He focused on their mental link, sending calm and safety into her mind. Slowly, her powers quieted. Using his communicator, Elias sent an emergency signal to the Queen, but the dome's shields blocked it. They were trapped. Survival and trust days passed. The dome's temperature dropped dangerously low, and food supplies ran thin. Sarah survived on rations stored inside, but the cold was a new enemy. Elias used stories again this time, about Earth winters and how people survived cold seasons by staying together and helping each other. Sarah listened, her eyes wide but calm. Despite the danger, their bond grew stronger. Elias learned to read Sarah's feelings without words. When she was scared, he held her. When she was curious, he showed her new things in the dome. One day, a small plant sprouted inside the dome, a sign of life and hope. Sarah smiled, and Elias knew they could survive. Preparing for the test, the Queen's 14 days were almost over. Elias knew the real test was yet to come. It helped Sarah control her powers, but the outside world was still full of danger. He wondered what the Queen truly wanted. Was this test about power, about trust, or something deeper? Elias looked at Sarah, no longer just a strange alien child, but someone who held the future in her hands. He whispered, "We will face this together." Sarah's eyes glowed softly, and in that moment Elias felt the weight of the challenge and a hope. The days inside the dome grew colder and darker. Elias, Mercer, and Sarah faced dangers not only from the wild power inside the child, but also from enemies outside. What had started as a test from the Valari Queen soon turned into a fight for survival and trust. Unseen threats, Elias woke to a sudden shiver. The warmth he had felt inside the dome was gone. His breath came out in small clouds as cold air filled the space. Sarah lay beside him, eyes wide and frightened. The dome's temperature. Controls were failing. He moved quickly to the control panel, but the systems showed strange errors. It was clear someone had sabotaged their shelter. Outside, the alien forest was quiet, but Elias knew it hid danger. The Valari were a proud and secretive people. Not all of them agreed with the Queen's plan to let a human care for the royal heir. A group of traditionalists, loyal to old ways, wanted to stop Elias. They believed no human should influence their future. Holding the storm, Sarah. As powers reacted to the cold and fear, pulses of light flickered around her, and the dome's walls vibrated with energy. Elias wrapped a warm blanket around her and held her close. "Breathe, Sarah," he said softly. "I'm here." He reached out with his mind, calming her fears. With the mental link they had built, storm in her mind began to fade, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. For the next hours, he worked to repair the dome's systems. His training as a scientist helped, but he was no Valari engineer. The sabotage was clever, designed to slow him down. Sarah watched, silent but alert. Elias realized she was learning too, watching how he stayed calm despite danger. Secrets in the shadows. While Elias worked, Sarah's mind wandered. She could feel the anger and fear of those who wanted her removed from power. She heard whispers in the minds of Valeri near the dome, voices filled with hate. But she also felt something. Knew Elias's courage and kindness. His calm heart was a beacon in the dark. Sarah's powers began to change. She sent out a small pulse of energy, not to harm, but as a warning. The traditionalists backed away. The cold test, the temperature inside the dome dropped below freezing. Elias and Sarah had little food left. Elias wrapped Sarah in his jacket to keep her warm, but he felt the cold biting into his bones at night. Elias told Sarah stories about Earth winters. He told her about how humans survived cold by staying close to loved ones, by sharing warmth and hope. Sarah listened, her glowing eyes softening. Elias's voice became a light in the cold darkness. A new strength as the cold deepened, Elias felt. His own strength fade. But Sarah grew stronger. She controlled her powers better than before, using them to heat small areas inside the dome. One day, Elias found a small plant growing inside the dome. It was a miracle. Life was returning. Sarah smiled at the plant and then at Elias. "Hope," she said softly. Elias nodded. Yes, hope. The final hours, the Queen's 14 days, were almost over. Elias knew the real challenge was still ahead. The outside world might try to stop them, but inside the dome, they had formed a bond stronger than any fear. Elias looked at Sarah not just as the Queen's child, but as a brave young being ready to face her destiny. "We will face what comes together," he whispered. Sarah's eyes glowed warmly, and Elias felt ready for whatever the future held. The dome on Nalaxar stood silent under the alien stars. Inside, Elias, Mercer, and Sarah sat close together. The days of cold, fear, and danger had passed. Now, a new challenge awaited, one that would test Elias's heart and mind like never before. The Queen's command one morning. The dome's walls shimmered with light. Queen Sarakhthuna's voice filled the space, calm but strong. "Elias Mercer," she said, "the time has come for the trial of memory. You must enter Sarah's mind and share your deepest past. Only then will she fully control her powers." Elias swallowed hard. He had heard stories of this trial, It was a powerful mental connection, one that could break the strongest minds if they were not ready. But what if I fail? Elias asked softly. The queen's eyes met his through the dome. Failure is not an option. Your memories shape you, they are your strength. Entering the Mindilius, closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. Sarah's thoughts were bright, swirling colors and feelings. As their minds connected, Elias felt himself pulled into a place from long ago, a place filled with pain and loss. He saw his daughter's face, laughing under the sun, and then the memory shifted to a dark day when she was taken from him forever. Tears filled Elias's eyes, but he held on. He spoke softly to Sarah, sharing his feelings of love, grief, and hope. Sharing pain and strength inside the mental connection, Elias felt Sarah's emotions mix with his own. She was scared, but also brave. She reached out to him, offering comfort. From inside his own mind, Elias was surprised. For the first time, a Valari and a human shared feelings on the same level of no walls. No fear, just pure connection. This bond gave Elias new strength. He understood Sarah's pain and fear. She understood his. Breaking the storm as Elias and Sarah shared memories, the storm of powers inside the child began to calm. Her eyes lost their fiery red glow and became soft silver again. The domes. Air felt lighter, filled with peace. Elias opened his eyes and saw Sarah smiling gently. "I am calm," she said simply. The queen's praise the dome shimmered again. And Queen Sarakthuan appeared, her face soft with pride. "You have passed the trial of memory, Elias. You and Sarah are now connected like never before." She stepped closer to Elias. "Your courage has shown us that humanity's strength is not in weapons or power, but in heart and connection." A new beginning, the queen's words settled over Elias like a warm light, felt hope for the first time in years. Sarah stepped forward and took his hand. "Teacher," she said. Elias smiled, feeling a deep bond. He was no longer just a visitor on Nalexar. He was a part of their future,